Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Smith. In this presentation, I'll be talking about social learning theory in the digital age. We'll look at Bandera's theory of social learning, how emerging technologies support learning online, the role of social media, and how it plays in collaboration, and some of the best practices for creating engaging online learning experiences. Our agenda, I'll first start out with an overview of social learning theory. I'll look at the three emerging technologies that support learning through observation. Then we'll look at how YouTube and LinkedIn support collaborative learning. These are two tools I use. And then I'll wrap up with a few best practices for applying social learning in an online classroom. But I want to first start with the foundation of everything, social learning theory. Albert Bandera believed that we don't learn by just doing, we also learn by watching others do things through observation. Think about how we learn to cook, drive, write our first names, or even learn a new app on our cell phone. Most of us watch someone else first, and then we try by ourselves. That is exactly the principle of social learning. We observe, we imitate, and we eventually develop the confidence to perform any task or behavior by ourselves or on our own. In an online learning environment, this is more important than ever because students are constantly watching videos, collaborating with classmates, and learning from digital demonstrations. So, how does observational learning actually occur in the online environment? It first begins with intention. If learners don't pay attention, learning doesn't happen. That's why it is imperative that we have engaging videos, visuals, and interactive lessons. They're so very important. Next comes retention. Learners have to remember what they observe in an online environment. So, discussion, repetition, and multimedia help move this information into our long term memory banks. Next is motor production, which simply means putting what you learned into action or practice. Students have to actually try the skill, not just watch passively as someone else does it. And lastly, the fourth process is motivation. People are much more likely to repeat a behavior when they receive encouragement, positive feedback, and see that their efforts are successful and not in vain. When these four processes work together and cyclical, they create an observational learning environment where students learn by watching their instructors or experts or even their peers before applying skills themselves. So now let's look at three technologies that naturally support social learning theory. Simulations is our first one I'm going to look at. One of the biggest advantages of simulations is that students can safely practice without worrying about making costly mistakes. For example, let's take medical students. They can perform emergency procedures multiple times before ever working with a real patient. Simulations support attention because they're interactive, retention through repeated experiences, and motor reproduction because learners are actively practicing a skill. Virtual reality takes the idea even further. Instead of simply watching a demonstration, learners can fully immerse in the experience. That level of immersion helps keep learners focused, not passive, strengthens retention, and gives them opportunities to repeatedly observe and practice complex skills. A great example is a surgical team, where future surgeons can practice procedures over and over before ever stepping into an operating room. And here's an example here. This image is a great example of social learning theory in action. A learner watches an expert performance, mentally rehearses each step, and then practices repeatedly in a risk-free, safe environment. That's exactly how observational learning is supposed to work in an online community. And at our school, our kids get a degree in health science and they get a degree in teacher education. Um, I know our health science kids do use virtual reality on the college side because a lot of them do want to be surgeons and anesthesiology. Um, I wish our teacher prep kids could do it so we wouldn't have to find different school locations so they could practice. It's just we haven't got that advantage yet. Next is augmented reality. Unlike virtual reality, augmented reality doesn't replace the real world, it enhances it. Digital directions are layered onto real objects so learners can immediately practice what they are actually seeing. For example, take a gardening app. I wish I had this. It can actually show someone where to make each cut while pruning a plant. This immediate guidance makes it easier for learners to build confidence while practicing. And I believe I have an example. This image shows how a learner can receive real-time support while performing an actual task like pruning a plant. Instead of watching first and practicing later, observation and practice happen simultaneously. Um, So this is my one. I really wanted to get into social media. Technology isn't just about those fancy tools. Social media creates some of the best opportunities for collaborative learning in an online environment. But I got to throw this out there in a hybrid and in-person environment, which I do at my high school as well as an adjunct professor at American. So here are my two. Um, YouTube, one of the most obvious examples is YouTube, which I'm going to be using for this project for Unit 4. Students can watch experts explain concepts, demonstrate skills, and model how best practices whenever they want to. That makes YouTube especially effective for attention, retention, and observational learning. But there are some issues and challenges with YouTube. Watching videos can become very passive learning if students never apply what they watch. And not every video contains accurate information. There are usually some valid and reliability issues there, especially depending on who's supplying them. I broke a toilet a few. As educators, we have a responsibility to really show our students how to think critically, how to check sources when using YouTube as a technology tool in an online environment. And there's so many ways to do that. Lateral reading, talking about the different tiers of reviews when we use, especially with academic sources and teaching our kids how to cite source. Um, but it's also got its practical uses, teaching kids how to annotate or imitate in English. Some of our best AP stuff comes from YouTube, from Khan Academy. Next is the LinkedIn. And I really got into this um, when I came to UMGC, almost halfway done with my career and got the LinkedIn transition. This platform supports in a very different way. Unlike YouTube, LinkedIn helps students and educators to observe industry experts, learning from experienced professionals and building connections with others in our field. Those authentic examples are powerful models for learning. The advantages include networking and exposure to different perspectives, often in your same field. There is a downside, though, to LinkedIn information overload. And there are some privacy concerns, too, that can sometimes become a distraction. Still, LinkedIn for me gives learners, because I do work with juniors and seniors, opportunities to observe professional behaviors that can later be applied to themselves. This is like one of my favorite ones, because I work with juniors and seniors and graduate students. So, what are some best practices for integrating social learning theory in digital environments? And first and foremost, use engaging multimedia, videos, your graphics, especially make sure they're royalty free, narration, like I'm doing now. I'm like trying to do all the things I'm presenting on, and interactive activities naturally capture a learner's attention. It keeps also the facilitator going. Their key is keeping everything clear, focused, and intentional instead of overwhelming learners with too much information or too many activities. Collaboration for mere peer modeling. It creates opportunities for us to learn from each other, even the facilitator learning from the students. Discussion boards, breakout rooms, peer reviews, group projects all allow students to observe different approaches, exchange ideas, and building understanding together. My high school AP courses are in person, but I've actually turned them into also hybrid because we do a lot of online stuff because I don't keep my kids in the classroom. We disperse because I'm claustrophobic too. So my kids love it. So we have to use a lot of online and digital environments in my room, even though we're in-person school. Another big one is feedback. We cannot underestimate the power of feedback. As a student here at UMG who's failed 2 courses, feedback has been my friend to pass them when I take them again. Specific and timely feedback helps students, even up at the graduate level, improve after they've practiced a new skill or not done well on one. If reinforces successful behavior, builds confidence, and increases motivation to keep learning. One thing about the social learning process or theory is reciprocal and it can be adjusted. And I also see one where it doesn't go like in that, it has to go in that certain order. It can be weaved in and out. So to wrap up, social learning theory continues to be incredibly useful framework for online learning. It was incredibly useful when we were straight in person. Emerging technologies like simulations, VR, and AR create authentic opportunities for observation and practice. But when we look at social media platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn, I wish I had time to talk about TikTok too. They extend beyond the classroom. And these are platforms that go the gamut really for secondary education and beyond, while they thoughtfully ensure that instructional design and facilitation and the content we use keeps our kids engaged and motivated, and as well as big kids like me. Ultimately, when educators, instructional designers, and people who make learning resources intentionally design opportunities for observation, collaboration, practice, and feedback, they create online learning environments where students and those of us who teach can truly thrive in an online environment. So thank you for watching. I'm so sorry it was so long, but this is like one of my favorite topics. These are my sources that I use from Unit 4. I grabbed some, I think, from like Unit 2 too. So thank you for your time, Professor.